I've always had this theory that learning a language is basically just a giant labeling project. Like, I walk into a room, I see a table, I learn the word table, and I stick a new label on it. Boom, I speak French. But looking at the stack of research we have for today's deep dive, I'm starting to feel like I've been looking at this completely wrong.
It's definitely not just labeling. If anything, that's the exact trap most people fall into.
Yeah.
Learning a language like French is more like, well, it's like installing a completely new operating system.
An operating system.
Right. It's not just new words. It's a completely new architecture for how you process reality. It forces you to care about data points that your English brain honestly just completely ignores.
Okay, give me an example. What exactly does this French OS care about that I don't?
We'll take a noun, just any noun. Does that noun have enough intrinsic beauty or goodness to sit at the front of the sentence? Or is a house literally old? Or is it just a former house solely based on where you drop the adjective?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that drives learners crazy. It just feels arbitrary.
It feels arbitrary until you see the logic. And that is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to unpack the hidden logic of French grammar. We're moving beyond the rote rules to understand why the language actually behaves the way it does.
And we have a really eclectic mix of sources to help us do that for you today. We've got a comparative analysis of French and English grammar from Masaryk University. We have a field guide to those absolute nightmare pronouns N and E from Syllabi.
Those are the best.
And this is the one I'm really curious about, a case study from the Hanoi University of Science and Technology.
That Hanoi study is an absolute gem. It's such a curveball in linguistic research.
It really is, because it follows Vietnamese students who already speak English and are now trying to learn French. It's like watching three completely different language logics fighting in a cage match inside their brains.
Yeah, it creates the perfect laboratory to see what linguists call interference. It shows exactly how your native tongue and even the other languages you've picked up along the way set hidden traps for you.
So the mission today for you listening, we're going to walk through this French mindset from the tiny grammar words to the massive structural shifts and see why our English brains fight back so hard. Let's start with the tiny giants, articles. The a, n, and the.
The words we use 10,000 times a day and literally never think about.
Until French makes us think about them. The sources highlight this immediately with what they call the zero article surprise regarding professions.
Right, this is one of the very first things that jars an English speaker. If we're at a party and you ask me what I do and I say, I am podcaster, I sound like a caveman.
You do. You sound like you're missing a piece of code. You need the A. I am a podcaster.
Exactly. In English, we treat a profession as a labeled object. You are one object in the broad category of podcasters. But the Masaryk University comparative course points out that in French, you drop the article entirely. You just say, il est médecin.
Literally.
He is doctor.
He's doctor. If I said that in English, people would think I was doing a bad impression. Why does French drop it? Is it just trying to be efficient?
It's actually philosophical. In French, when you talk about a profession, with the verb to be the profession, becomes an attribute. It functions like an adjective. It's describing a quality of your existence, not labeling you as an object on a shelf.
Wait, so it's more like saying, I am happy or I am tall.
Precisely. You wouldn't say, I am a tall. You just say, I am tall. French treats doctor or teacher with that exact same adjectival logic. It's a really subtle shift in identity. It's less, I am one of these things, and more, this is a quality I possess.
That is subtle. And speaking of possession, the sources bring up the body parts rule, which is fascinating. This one always trips me up because English is totally obsessed with ownership. My back hurts. She has blue eyes. It's my back. Her eyes.
English is very capitalist that way. It's all about property rights.
We claim absolutely everything.
We really do. But French logic assumes the context is obvious. If you say, j'ai mal au dos, you are literally saying, I have pain in the back.
Which sounds incredibly clinical to me, like I'm looking at an x-ray of, quote-unquote, the back.
But think about the logic. If you are the one screaming in pain, whose back would it be?
Hopefully mine, because if I'm feeling pain in someone else's back, we have a whole different set of problems.
Right, exactly. So French grammar just says, we don't need to specify my. It's completely redundant. You don't need to claim it.
The source gives that great example about eyes, too. C'est une femme avec des yeux bleus. She's a woman with some blue eyes.
Right. They use the article they or the definite article le or la. English defaults to the possessive pronoun, whereas French defaults to the article. It's like French is constantly pointing at the world, the hand, the France, whereas English is constantly claiming it, my hand, my France.
And speaking of the France, that's a hard rule, isn't it? You can't just say, I love France.
Never. It has to be j'aime la France.
Why, though? Why can't the noun just hang out by itself?
Because in French, nouns rarely like to be naked. They almost always require an introduction, a little usher, to walk them to their seat. That's what the article does. It tells you right away, is this a specific entity, a general concept, or part of a whole? English is much more casual about letting nouns float around undefined. French wants that specificity locked down before the noun even arrives.
Okay, so nouns need chaperones. Let's move from the chaperones to the ghosts. The pronouns "on" and "we."
Ah, yes. The syllabi guide refers to these as the words that make learners freeze mid-sentence.
They really do. They're literally 2 letters long. Why are they so terrifying?
Because they are abstract. In English, we tend to be explicit. If we replace a word, we use it, or them, or their. But "on" and "why" are slippery. They don't just replace a noun, they swallow the preposition that came with it. They are efficiency tools, but they require you to plan your sentence in reverse.
Okay, let's decode "on" first. Break it down for me.
The absolute simplest way to think about "on" is that it eats the word of or from, or in French grammar terms, it replaces anything starting with de.
Give me a real-world scenario.
Picture, you're at a dinner party. Someone offers you cake. In English, you might say, I want some. In French, you'd say, je veux du gâteau. But you don't want to repeat gâteau, so you say, j'en veux.
Literally, I of it want.
Yes. The "en" contains the addition of the cake. It's a quantity wrapper. And here's the kicker. It's mandatory. In English, you can just say, I have too much. In French, you must say, j'en ai trop, I have too much of it. If you leave out the sentence just feels unfinished, like you dropped a shoe.
It's almost like a mathematical variable. Alchem equals the thing we were just talking about involving a quantity.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it gets locked into these fixed expressions where the original thing is long gone, like je n'en peux plus.
I can't take it anymore.
Right? What is the "on" there? Is it the situation, life,
Yeah.
the noise? It's just everything. It's all wrapped up in that little syllable.
Then we have its cousin E.
Right, so E is the directional counterpart. It usually replaces anything starting with so to or at. It's primarily about place.
So are you going to the class? Are you going there?
Tu vas au cours becomes oui j'y vais. The E completely replaces au cours.
This connects to that phrase everyone learns on day one. Right, on EVA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Or, metaphorically, let's get to it. It's a forward motion. But, and here is the massive trap the sources scream about, you have to be careful.
The people exception.
Yes. This is where the logic creates a social minefield. You generally cannot use "on" or "we" for specific people.
So if I'm thinking about my friend Pierre and I want to say I'm thinking about him, I can't say je pense.
No, you absolutely cannot. Because "why" is for things, places, ideas. If you use "why" for Pierre, you've basically turned him into a lamp or a concept. You've completely dehumanized him.
Ouch. So Pierre requires the full respect of a stressed pronoun.
Correct. You have to say, je pense à lui. I think about him. The grammar literally forces you to distinguish between sentient beings and objects.
That is a crucial distinction. It's wild that a tiny letter "we" carries that much social weight.
Okay, let's move to something that feels a bit more architectural. Adjectives. In English, we are simple creatures. Adjective goes before noun, red car, tall man. And French usually puts them after. Une table ronde, a table round. But then we have bangs.
The mnemonic that saves lives.
Beauty, age, number, goodness, size. These are the VIP adjectives. They get to cut the line and sit in front of the noun, just like in English.
So un beau livre for beauty, un vieux château for age.
La première fois for number, un bon gâteau for goodness, une petite table for size.
It seems straightforward enough. Memorize the list, put them in front. But the Coffee Break French source points out something that kind of blew my mind. Sometimes you can put the exact same adjective in either spot before or after, and it completely changes the reality of the object.
This is where French gets really poetic. It's the difference between objective fact and subjective opinion.
Walk me through the grand example. Un grand homme versus un homme grand.
Okay, so grand is in the bangs list under size. So you expect it before the noun. If I say Napoleon was un grand homme, I'm putting it before the noun. That makes it figurative. It means he was a great man, a man of status, history, importance.
But if I put it after, un homme grand.
Now you are being purely literal. You are taking out a tape measure. He is a tall man.
So placing it after makes it physical and factual. Placing it before makes it emotional or subjective.
Generally, yes. Look at the word ancien. Un maison ancienne adjective after is an old house, ancient ruins. It's all about the physical age of the bricks.
And mon ancienne maison?
Adjective before. That's my former house. It's not about the bricks at all. It's about the
Yeah.
timeline of my life. It could literally be a brand new apartment that I just moved out of.
That is such a cool nuance. English relies entirely on context or tone of voice for that. We'd say it's my old house. French encodes it right into the word order.
It's very elegant. It allows you to be precise about whether you're describing the world as it objectively is or the world as you personally see it. Take propos as another example.
Oh, right. Ma propre chambre versus ma chambre propre.
Exactly. Ma propre chambre is my own bedroom. It's subjective. It's about possession. But ma chambre propre is my clean bedroom. A literal physical fact about the room.
Speaking of precision, let's touch on one more structural piece before we get to the interference study. The gerundif. It sounds like a medieval weapon.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's the multitasking grammar. This is the en plus verb en structure. En skiant, while skiing.
The source had a somewhat gruesome example. Il s'est cassé la jambe en skiant. He broke his leg while skiing.
It shows simultaneous action. But the CBSE French source highlights a constraint that English speakers ignore all the time. In French, the subject of the main verb and the subject of the gerund absolutely must be the same person.
So I can't say I saw him en skiant.
If you say that a French person will assume you were the one skiing when you saw him.
Because I am the subject of the sentence.
Exactly. In English, we play fast and loose with this. I saw him skiing. We know from context that he was likely the one on skis, but French logic says no, the subject is I, so the gerund belongs to I. If you want to say he was skiing, you have to break the structure and say, I saw him who was skiing.
It forces you to be hyper clear about who is actually doing what.
There's no room for ambiguity.
Which brings us to the ultimate test of ambiguity and confusion, the Hanoi University of Science and Technology case study.
This is where things get really interesting for us as English speakers.
Right, because usually we just compare French and English. But these students are Vietnamese, they speak Vietnamese natively, they learned English as a second language, and now they are learning French.
And the study found that their English is actually sabotage. They call it the English trap.
How so? I would have thought knowing another European language would be a huge help.
You'd think so. But because English and French share so much vocabulary, something like 40 to 50%, the students get a false sense of security. They start routing their French through their English brain instead of their Vietnamese brain.
And that leads to false friends.
Big time. The study highlights the word hostel. The student wants to say they're staying in a university dorm. In English, they learned hostel, so they just guessed the French word is hotel.
Which, I mean, it is sort of.
But in French, hotel almost exclusively means a commercial hotel. So they say, je suis à l'hôtel. And suddenly they sound like they're living a life of absolute luxury, all because they trusted their English intuition.
So they're accidentally bragging because their English wires got crossed.
Exactly. And the grammar transfer is wild, too. Sometimes they just use the infinitive instead of conjugating verbs because they're mimicking the simpler verb structures they found in English or Vietnamese.
But it goes deeper than vocabulary and grammar.
Oh.
This study went deep into pronunciation, and this is where the three brains problem really clearly shows up.
The nasals, right, the N on N.
Yeah, the nasal vowels are practically the soul of a French accent. Now, Vietnamese has nasal sounds, so you'd think they'd be naturally good at it.
Sure.
But Vietnamese and English, for that matter, tends to close a nasal sound with a consonant. Think of the English word song or bang. Your tongue touches the roof of your mouth to finish the tang sound.
Okay, I can feel that. Sangu.
Right. But in French, the nasal is completely open. Air just flows through the nose, the tongue never closes the door. The study found the students were Vietnamesing or Englishing the French words by adding that hard nang at the end. So a word like bonté became bongté.
They're putting a hard border on a sound that's supposed to be fluid.
Exactly. Or they swallow the endings. Like a word like bibliothèque gets cut short to biblioth because they aren't exploding those final consonants.
And then there's the monotone issue, which is absolutely fascinating. Vietnamese is a tonal language. A pitch of a word changes its meaning completely.
So you'd expect them to be very melodic in French.
You would. But the study found they often speak French in a monochord way, totally flat.
Why? That seems so counterintuitive.
It's cognitive overload. They know French isn't tonal like Vietnamese, but they also know it's not stress-timed like English where we hit the important words really hard. They get stuck between these conflicting systems, and their brain just defaults to flatlining. They strip away the melody entirely because they're terrified of using the wrong melody.
That is so relatable. It's like trying to dance when you hear two completely different songs playing at once. You just end up standing still.
That is a perfect analogy, and it bleeds into the grammar too. The passive voice debate in this study was really illuminating about how different languages encode emotion.
Yeah, this was the part that really surprised me. The sources debated whether Vietnamese even has a passive voice.
Right. In English, passive is purely structural. The house was built. The car was stolen. It's just the verb to be plus a past participle. It's just a fact.
It's totally neutral.
But in Vietnamese, the passive idea is conveyed using function words that carry heavy emotional baggage. Bis and duk. You use be if the event was bad. You use duk if the event was good.
So if I say I was fined, I use the bad word.
Be fit. Because getting a fine is unfortunate. But if you were promoted, you'd use duk. The grammar itself forces you to take a stance on whether this event was a tragedy or a blessing.
And French doesn't do that.
French, like English, uses a structural passive. La maison a été construite. It's emotionally neutral. The study found that Vietnamese learners felt a profound semantic gap. They wanted to express judgment through the grammar because that's what their brain is wired to do, but French just wouldn't let them.
That is mind-blowing. It's not just about word order, it's about whether the language fundamentally allows you to complain or celebrate within the grammar itself.
It completely reinforces the idea that learning a language is really about learning what not to say or what you don't need to express anymore.
It brings it all back to that idea of rewiring we started with. We've looked at how French demands you label professions as attributes, not objects. We've seen how N and E force you to distinguish between people and things. We've seen how adjectives change reality depending on where you literally sit them in a sentence.
And we've seen through the Hanoi study that our native language is always there in the background, trying to impose its own rules on the new system.
It makes me wonder about that whole blank slate idea. You know, people always say, forget what you know when learning a language.
There really is no such thing as a blank slate.
The sources showed that Vietnamese students struggled with French precisely because of their English knowledge. It raises a huge question. When you learn a new language, are you ever truly speaking that language? Or are you always just translating your past experiences?
Are we speaking French or are we speaking English French?
And does that mean we never truly see the world through French eyes? We're just looking at it through English glasses with a French tint.
It's a humbling thought. But I think the struggle to remove those glasses is the whole point. Yeah. That's where the real learning happens.
Something to chew on while you practice your N and Phi. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.